This video is about the extract macro operator, which creates macros containing data from example sets. This is useful if you want to control how a process executes, or perhaps you want to report something explicitly based on something from an example set. We'll cover extracting the number of examples from an example set, the number of attributes in it. We'll look at extracting the values of attributes for specific examples. And finally, we'll look at extracting other descriptive statistics such as averages and counts and so on. I've created a simple process. I'll run this because I've created a view where all of the salient data is in one place to make it easy to explain. So the process, basically it creates some data. It's the ARIS data set with some of the values set to missing to show a certain feature of the extract macro operator. The example set is then passed to various copies of the extract macro operator with different parameters. This one counts the number of examples, this one counts the number of attributes, this extracts some values, and these extracts other descriptive statistics. Let's start by looking at the data. So this is the raw data in the example set. It's, as I say, the ARIS data set with some of the attributes set to missing. If we look at the statistics view, you can see that it's in fact attribute A3. I've set 9 of A3's attributes to be missing. You'll also see that macros have been created, and what we'll do is we'll go through each of these generate macro operators one by one, and we'll find the macro that gets created and relate that back to the statistics and the data views from the example set. So let's start with, so this is an extract macro operator where a number of examples has been chosen as the descriptive statistics to extract. So what this is doing is creating a macro called number of examples, and by selecting the drop down you select the type, which is number of examples. Quite easy really. So as you might expect, the number of examples is 150. So if we can see that here, and looking at the statistics view of the example set, we can see examples 150 here. So far so good. This next one is the number of attributes. Now this is actually the number of regular attributes. So again, from the drop down, the extract macro operator, you simply choose number of attributes. The macro that will be created is called number of regular attributes in this case. Sure enough, you can see 4 here. If we go to the statistics view, you can count them 4. You can also see over to the right here, regular attributes 4. The next one, value. So what this will do is we'll create a macro called value of A1, example 1, and its value will be determined by example number 1 of attribute A1. If we click here, we can see A1 has, example 1 has value 5.1. If we look at the macro, we can see it's 5.1. You'll also notice it's possible to create additional macros. So for the same example, you can create another macro. In fact, you can create as many as you like. Basically what this will do is set the macro value of A2 example 1 to be the value of attribute A2, and you can see you can choose which attribute you want here. Sure enough, if we look at A2 example 1, it's 3.5. Sure enough, that's what the macro has been set to. Now we'll look at the other descriptive statistics here. So this extract macro operator will create a macro called average of A1. It will base it on the average of A1 by choosing the appropriate values from these drop downs here. So you can see average of A1 is 5.843. If I go to the statistics view, we can see, sure enough, there it is. Next one count of A3 missing is what this macro will be called, and it will be based on how many unknown A3s there are. An unknown means missing, so we can see here A3, there are 9 missing values here, and sure enough, if you look at the value of the macro, it does indeed say 9. So far so good. Last one, this is for nominal values. I'm trying to count how many times a particular value of an attribute occurs. So my macro is called count of iris setosa, which happens to be one of the allowable values for the label, and you can see that the statistics view is saying 50, so it's basically saying there are 50 examples where the label is iris setosa. So again, by choosing statistics from here, count as the statistics option, the attribute name is label, and then the value is iris setosa. This does not need to be in quotes. You essentially allow it to count the number of times iris setosa appears. So sure enough, there's the answer. And as you can see, there are many other possibilities. You can do standard deviations, variances, min, max, count. We've seen that, unknown. So you'll find these things very valuable if you want to extract something interesting about a piece of example data, which you then use to drive how a more complex process might execute. And it's relatively advanced, but is very useful, and you will almost certainly need to use it.